My name is Brendan Holland. I am son of Brendan Holland. I was born in Galway, just over there, in St. Bride's, which is now gone. I was baptised in the Pro-Cathedral, just over there, which is now gone. They've tried to obliterate me, but I'm still here. We're here in William Gate Street, that's the main street there of the town. Behind you is Eyre Square, and we're here. My grandfather came to Galway in 1930. He had a business in Burr since 1916, but he had to tell the people of Offaly, but he could see no future in Burr, and he decided to come back to Galway. Now, the centre of the town at that stage in 1930 was down at them far chimneys away down there in Dominic Street. That was the centre of the town, and he came to buy O'Malley's in Dominic Street. The Munster and Leinster Bank that were over there wouldn't give him the money for the loan, and he met a guy just there in Eyre Square called Henry Blake, who was the solicitor of the town. And he was talking to Henry, and he told Henry that the bank wouldn't give him the loan. And Henry, in his amicable way, said, "You don't worry about that. I'll get you this loan up here in the Bank of Ireland, but there's a better place to buy in William Gate Street." And as it turned out, that's where we ended up. In 1930, he opened the business here in 1930. Now, I met Henry Blake's son, St. John, at my father's funeral. And I was telling them that story. And St. John said about Henry, he said, "My father was a wonderful man. He gave everybody advice. He took none of it himself." So he was. And consequently, that's how we ended up here in William Gate Street. And in 1950, my father bought this half of the business. There was two shops here. My grandfather moved all his family in here in 1930 from Burr. There was 6 of them in the family. And then my grandfather you can't see it from here, but down in Main Guard Street, my grandfather hired a place down there so that he could move half his family down there, because there was no room down there. And subsequently, my uncle opened a Newsagents in that place in Main Guard Street. And they used to say the town of Galway was from Hollands to Hollands. That's where it was. And then my father bought this half here of the business. The bidding started at £2,000 in 1950. A lot of money. He finally got it because he was told there was an American coming back to buy the place. He finally told it after being egged on by his brother, who was down in Main Guard Street, and his brother-in-law, who had a business there in Carrolls. And they egged him on. And he ended up buying the place for £13,500 in 1950. The town thought he was mad. Bearing in mind that the Ardalon Hotel in 1960, the whole 10 acres or whatever it was in Taylorsill, was bought for £10,000 in 1960. So he was mad, but thanks be to God he was mad, because we wouldn't be here now had he not done that. And we're here since then. And now my daughter has joined the business, and she's 4th generation here. My grandfather was P.J. Holland. He had a business in Athenry. I don't know where he got the money, but he ended up getting the money, and he bought a business right in the square in Athenry. I have a photograph at home which shows Holland's in Athenry. 1916, he was down in the Imperial Hotel or thereabouts, in Listowne Varna, as you do, and he spotted a woman, a younger woman called Dorinda Egan, who lived in Kinnity, and he decided to go chasing women, or he moved to Burr for better or for worse, and he opened a business in the middle of Burr, Newsagents. Subsequently, he got married and he had 6 children, which my father was the eldest, and in 1930. As I said, he couldn't see any future in Burr, and he decided up lock, stock, barrel, and that's why he ended up here in Galway. My mother came from Ballinasloe. They had a pub in Society Street, just across the road from Hayden's Hotel in Society Street, and my grandmother was there in around the 1920s and that. And at some stage, the story goes, her husband had gone to America with the intention of bringing the whole family over to America. And all my granny wanted to do was go to America. That was it. And at some stage, sometime the Black and Tans came in looking for information off the woman in the pub, because they knew the pub women knew everything that was going on in the town. They were drunk and they put her up against the wall, and somehow or other a bullet missed her by inches, and she decided she was getting out of the pub business and that she wanted to get out of it altogether. Then the 1929 came, the crash came. There was no hope for her going to America, so she decided then it was time to get up out of Ballinasloe and move to Galway. My father inherited this place. My uncle, Mick Holland, ran the other place, and his youngest brother, J.V. Holland, had a fish shop just beyond the engagement ring there and that. And he ended up starting Galway Bay Seafood Factory, which is just over there beyond the docks. He had the younger sister who died of meningitis at the age of 21, and he had another sister, Maureen, who was also there. And my father in 1960 got elected to the city council. He was mayor in 1965 when the cathedral was opened. And my brother, by coincidence or otherwise, was born the week before the cathedral was opened. So the bishop thought it'd be lovely, since the Cardinal Cushing and Cardinal Conway and half of the ecclesiastical members of the Church of Ireland, of the church, were in Galway, that it'd be nice if the mayor's son was first baptised in the cathedral, and so it was. And he was on the council until he died, really, in 1989. And my mother lived to be, she died last year in March 21, at the age of 99 years, 11 months and 2 weeks. And being a frugal woman, it killed her that she didn't get the cheque from Michael D, so whom she knew well from being on the council. 1972, this building here is Carvers Court. It was Carvers Warehouse, and it went down to where that roof is there, that triangle there. That was it. And from there on and across, and as you can see it, right across, there was McDonough's warehouse. There was a big tarmac. There was a big tarmac roof all along there, and it was only waiting to go on fire. So it was. The fire chief had a whole plan. He was a fire chief called Sugru, I think was his name. He had a whole plan, knowing full well that this was going to happen. And as it turned out, summer of 1972, some little spark went off down there, and the whole thing went up, poof, went up, and it just ran along there. I was actually in that warehouse that morning. I saw my very first sit-on lawnmower inside the place. I went up to the bank up there to get change. I looked out, I saw all this smoke going up along there, and we ran up here onto the roof here to see what was happening. We were actually rebuilding this place at the time, and there was builders in here rebuilding it, and we saw the smoke coming up here, and in a flash of a light, the flame went right around there to the back of it there, and the next thing there was a big bang, and the paint had gone up on fire, and we ran. The builders were here, and I remember the builder, oh, my tools are going on fire, and he grabbed these tools. We ran down the stairs, we got out the front door, and at that stage the fire had gone from the triangle there right through Corbett. The big windows that were in the front had just went black with the smoke and just blew out. And 1972 was the time the troubles were in the north, and every night on the television you'd see flames and burn. It was exactly like as if a bomb had just hit the whole place. The GBC were just after doing up their place, and they had fortunately strengthened the fire, and as it turned out, the fire couldn't go this way, so it went down that way. And just there where Carl's is, there was a Black Rock, which my uncle ran. Billy Broadward was the Black Rock men's shop, and then next door was Whelan's and that. And all of those were the Black Rock was wiped out, Whelan's was severely damaged, but all of that back there was completely and utterly gutted. And I looked in the following day, and here I saw my beautiful sit-on lawnmower, and it just melted inside. And that, so it was, and we were very lucky because Fallers here they had a wooden shutter which started to melt. And the only damage we got out of it, we just put in new windows in here and there was a crack in it. And that was still there 20 years later. The crack was still in the window till we refurbished here and took them out at that stage. So yeah, it was the big news. And funny story, they'll tell you, is there was the fire chief from Boston happened to be on holidays here at the time. And so when there was panic going on, he came to the fire chief in Galway and he said, look, I'm the fire chief from Boston, I'd like to help. Jesus is the fire chief from the Galway fire chief. He said, Christ, they're not even in from Lochray yet and they're here from Boston already. So there was always humour. That's what I love about Galway. There's always a sense of humour in doom and gloom. Yeah. Wow. Well, my first school was the Presentation Convent, just over there. We lived in Barraholla, Wood Quay, just down there. We used to walk up to the school in the days. There was no problem. And Jonathan Margetts and myself were in school in the Pres in 1958. We went into the school there in the Pres. That school is gone since, the little primary school. And then we moved out. My father moved out to Rockbarton Park, which is in Salt Hill, but at the time he thought he was out in the middle of Connemara and never really settled there, so he didn't, because he thought it was too big a townie. He thought it was far too far out. And when we moved there, I moved out to St. Enda's. I was one of the, we were the first class of, in, I don't know when it was, 1960, something or other. We went to primary school then in St. Enda's, which is just across the road from the Pier Stadium. And then when I left that, I ended up in boarding school because in Newbridge College, because it was kind of a family tradition at that stage. And my father, who was very fair-minded, decided that if one of us were going to get boarding school, the whole lot of us were going to get boarding school. And it nearly broke him to send us all to boarding school. And I think he wasted his money and a lot of us, so he did. And then in 1972, the regional tech was after opening, and I went into the regional tech. It was the first year that was open. So and there was 300 students in the regional tech, and it was a wonderful education because everybody was trying to find their own feet, including the pupils and everything. And actually, as it turned out, last year was the 50th year so they had commemorations, and they were looking for somebody to get up and give a little speech as to represent the first pupils. Now, I think I was their star pupil, and that's why they asked me, but really, in essence, I think they couldn't find anybody else who would do it. And we got up, and the principal was there. He was only 32 when he was appointed principal of the college. He was a young fella. They literally didn't know what they were doing or what they were trying to do, but it was all an adventure. And as it turned out, it was a catalyst for the Galway, because we were the first generation who didn't have to emigrate. We were the first generation that got education beyond high knob universities. We were the first generation in which left an educated youth around Galway and around the world, around Ireland. And as it turned out, in hindsight, that's the reason, one of the reasons digital came to Galway. And as it turned out, everything else followed. And in the 1970s, Galway was a marvellous town because there was a whole young generation that had not emigrated. They were working in places like digital and other factories that had come along at the same. They were all getting magnificent wages. There was a party every night because somebody was coming or somebody was going, or there was a reason. Digital was a marvellous place to work for, and Galway was a marvellous town then, so it was, because there was money around for a change. And as a subsequent, it was the making of Galway at that stage, so it was, and that, because we didn't send our youth out. It's lost its individual personality, I think, but that's part of progress. The main changes is that I don't think there are probably as many characters around, and that, but you don't really know them as much. I think the main changes is that there's prosperity in Galway, and there is poverty too, no doubt. There is poverty, and I think the main changes is that whereas the centre of town here was a centre of commerce, it's now becoming a tourist attraction. I wouldn't like to live anywhere else, to be honest with you. I'm very happy to have lived in my life in Galway, and that. I just worry that it's for the future moving on, it's living a bit on its laurels. And I just think that town planners and government planners and all that are just in with a vision of 7 years, which is their term of office. And they can't see beyond that. And as a consequence, the downside of Galway is that we have this horrendous, through lack of planning, traffic problem that's going to, it's a wart on Galway that's putting people off coming. For the last 15 years, my passion has been, I'm with a very brilliant group of guys who contribute voluntarily to bring a light rail to Galway. That's our ambition, and we have banged on doors and ministers. I've been to 7 different ministers for transport over that time, explaining how and everything it would work. And it would be brilliant, and one only has to stand and see the Lewis in Dublin and see what that's done for Dublin, and that people use it. And yet, the City Council here just seem to want to stick their head in their muck and not see what the problem is, and are not willing to change, and government won't stick their head out and make an effort. And of course, we're out here in the West, to hell with you. Oh, besides the obvious, saying, you know, when my children were born and when I got married, and and I cover myself there, they're without shadow of a doubt, they're the happiest ones. But I think the day I realised I was born in Galway was probably the happiest day that and I'm completely biased, I don't deny it. When I was in boarding school in Newbridge in Kildare, it's an inland town, and the happiest day would come when I'd come home, and that night I'd be in bed and you'd hear the Marita. I'm not sure if a lot of people won't remember this, but there was a buoy out in the bay called the Marita Buoy, and when the wind would blow at night time, you'd hear whoo, whoo, and that's when I knew I was home in Galway. So besides having the day as I got married, and besides the day my children were born, and my grandchildren, of course, the proudest day, I think, when I taught my 2 grandchildren who live down in Cork and have fierce Cork accents, and their surname is Toomey, you won't get more at Cork, the day I taught them how to shout, "Up Galway!"
Do you have any regrets?
Regret. Okay. Yeah, well, it boils back to my passion. That my regret is that it's taken so long for the City Council to see the future of Galway, and it's taken so long to convince, which I am totally and utterly convinced, that light rail will come to Galway, because there's nothing else that will solve the problem. The outer ring road will come probably, I don't know whether it'll come, nobody knows whether the outer ring, it won't solve the problem in here, in the city centre of commuters. And life has proven, the records have been proven, that light rail will solve the problem. Would London be the city it is today without the underground? No, not at all. Would New York be the city it is today without the subways? No. So light rail has to come to Galway, whether they like it or not. And my regret is that I probably won't live long enough to see it. That's my regret. But it has to come. And I'll fight my little case. And the lads who are on the committee with Mort and Brendan and Pádraig and the whole lot have put in huge contributions into that vision and belief. And we only need somebody to take it by the scruff.
We'll send this video to the councillors.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. You're quite free to do. I was on the council myself.
Yeah.
I inherited the. My father, as I say, was on the council until he died, 1989. I inherited for about 3 years, and to be totally honest with you, I got totally frustrated because of the lack of the system. The system is all wrong, so it is. It has evolved into something of a conglomerate which is not fit for purpose in this day and age. And what we need is single mayor. I'm all for the single mayor who has ministerial powers for our Galway. And I'd go as far as scrapping all the councillors. It's just a total exercise in democracy, and that's all it is. And I'm all for democracy. I am a complete Democrat, but I think we should have a mayor here who can decide on things and have a fund to do it and pay him a decent wage and leave him in there for 5 years. The other thing I have learned over the years is nobody nobody should get a third term in office. They have a right to get elected, they have a right to get re-elected, but they don't have a franchise on doing wonderful things for Galway. And the longer they stay there, the less effective they are. So you get 2 terms. After that, if you're not successful, out you get. Let somebody else in there.
If you could give one piece of advice to a younger Brendan, smaller Brendan, what would that be?
What would that be? Do exactly as you did. Do exactly. You're standing here at 70 years of age, in good health, and lovely family, a nice house. All I want. So do exactly as you did, except if you can, and it's not possible, enjoy it even more.